Got it. All right, once again, hello, everybody, and welcome. Tell me if you can't hear me, I'll turn my camera off, but we're gonna go with the camera on for now. We thought, I'm joined by my colleague, Liz Isaacs. My name is Shannon Quinn Sheeran. We're from Housing Innovations, and we're a support team for CT Boss, as many of you know. And we thought we'd do a webinar on YHDP replacement projects, since it's a whole new thing this year. And as we were planning this, we learned that HUD is going to do a whole additional, HUD itself is going to do a whole additional webinar for providers on replacement projects. So just to start out saying, we're presenting what we know so far, and this is information we've received from reading the NOFO itself and from the detailed instructions that are both linked in this presentation. But there's still more to know, and as we come upon additional information, we will certainly share that with you all. And I do see that Katie has joined us. So Katie, I just want to shout out to you. Thank you for being here. And if you have anything to add throughout the presentation, please feel free to do so, Katie Durand. We'll get.
Yeah, and feel free to put questions in the chat box, but also put your hand up or unmute yourself, because we want to make sure we answer as many questions as we can, and we will note any questions where we're still waiting for further information, and we'll make sure we reach out to HUD with those or get the information, hopefully once HUD does its webinar.
Great, thanks, Liz. So we're going to walk through allowable activities for the YHDP replacement app. That's going to be most of the presentation. There are many allowable activities that are unique and new. Application sections, the timeline, and some resources. So the options with replacement projects may choose to replace its current project with a new one, which may include activities eligible under the COC program, or you all may, I just ask if you're not asking a question or speaking, if you mute yourself, there's a little bit of background noise. And then you also may replace portions of your current program, keep some, replace others. That still involves submitting a replacement project. And if you are submitting a replacement project, you must demonstrate that it will directly address youth homelessness. This is all still youth as the population being served here. Eligible activities. So this is going to be several screens of, excuse me, the different types of activities outside of a normal NOFO that YHDP replacements are eligible to apply for. Again, this is from reading the NOFO and some of the detailed instructions. And there's a link to the NOFO in the back. Did someone have a question?
A new paragraph.
No, okay. So eligible activities, you may have leases for a minimum term of 1 month under the rental assistance budget line item. For the budget line items, leasing, sponsor-based rental assistance, project-based rental assistance are all eligible in rapid rehousing projects. Leasing is normally not allowed, and the other types of rental assistance are normally not allowed. You can use admin funds to support costs associated with involving youth, young people with lived experience in project implementation. So you can hire your youth in your project to help with project implementation, execution, and improvement. You must show, it might say this in another area here, but you must show that there's no conflict of interest with that youth, but you may hire youth. You can use admin funds to attend conferences, trainings that are not HUD sponsored, which is usually not allowed with COC, NOFO funds. So the subject matter must be relevant to youth homelessness. Again, may employ youth receiving services, including housing from the organization. That's where it says you must have documentation showing there's no conflict of interest. You may use different habitability standards. And I link them here rather than the housing quality standards in normal for the normal NOFA. But you must keep documentation of which standards are being applied to the units and prove that the units complied with the standards before assistance. So that part is the same. You still have to use some standards, and that the standards have to be checked off before you're providing assistance to that individual or household. You may provide moving expenses for more than one time. You may provide payments of up to $500 per month for families providing housing under host home and kinship care offset the increased costs associated with having the youth housed in the unit. Now, in addition, you may provide payments of up to $1,000 per month for families providing housing under host home and kinship care model. So for that, please keep track of these things where it's saying provided and you must show, because those are things you're going to have to talk about in your application. And those are administrative responsibilities you all are going to have ongoing through your project. So if HUD were to come and monitor, you would have to show how you, in this last bullet instance, provided the recipient can show, you all, the providers can show that additional cost is necessary to recruit hosts to the program. So more activities. For the following list, you can provide them if they are necessary to assist the participants obtaining and maintaining housing. And you have to keep records how it was determined paying that cost was necessary for the participant to do so. And then for this one, again, additional requirements, you have to conduct an annual assessment of participant needs and adjust the costs accordingly. You can't just keep on going on paying indefinitely. So these things, security deposits in an amount not to exceed 2 months' rent, costs for damages to housing due to participants' action may be paid while the youth continues to reside in the unit, total cost not to exceed 2 months' rent, cost of providing household cleaning supplies to the participant, housing startup expenses. So it gives us this long list of things available, but then it says not to exceed $300 per participant. So I'm not sure how much furniture you're going to get for that, but in addition, so this is that list continuing. You can provide one-time costs of purchasing a cell phone and service for the participant use, again, provided access is necessary to obtain or maintain housing and the cost of the phone is reasonable. Cost of internet, providing the cost is reasonable. Rental arrears consisting of a one-time payment for up to 6 months of rental arrears, including late fees on those arrears. Utility arrears of up to 6 months per utility per service, and then up to 3-month utilities, going forward utilities based on utility cost schedule for the unit size and the location. This is a continuation of that list again still. So in addition to the normal COC funded transportation costs, the provider may pay gas and mileage for participants' personal vehicle for trips to or from medical care, employment, childcare, or other services eligible under this section. May pay legal fees, including court fees. may pay past driving fines or fees that are blocking a participant from being able to obtain or renew a driver's license and impacting the ability to obtain or maintain housing. You also may pay costs for insurance and registration for personal vehicles, again, if the vehicle is necessary to reach medical care, employment, childcare, those things. Providers may provide up to 36 months of rapid rehousing rental assistance to participants if you demonstrate these things. And demonstrate, meaning like record this for every participant you're going to do this for. The method used to determine which youth need rental assistance beyond 24 months. The services and resources offered to ensure the youth will be able to sustain their housing at the end of that 36 months of assistance. You may also continue providing supportive services to participants for up to 24 months after your participant exits homelessness, exits TH, or after the end of housing assistance if the recipient, if the grant, you all receiving the funds demonstrate the proposed length of extended services, the method used to determine whether the services are necessary. That's, y'all are getting the theme here, right? And how those services will result in self-sufficiency and ensure housing stability for that person at the end of the services.
Great. And I'm gonna, yep. Continue. Again, we're still talking about continuing to provide supportive services to program participants for up to 3 years after the participant exits. If services are in connection with housing assistance, such as foster youth to independence initiative, or if the recipient, the agency provider, can demonstrate that supportive services will ensure continuity of caseworkers with participants. Also, rental assistance can be combined with operating and leasing in the same building, but you need to submit a project plan that includes safeguards to make sure that no part of the project is double dipping or getting a double subsidy. So match, this is interesting this year. So if you are using a match, if you're using program income, you have to provide an estimate of how much that's going to be. However, you also have this ability, YHDP renewal or replacement projects. So not just if you're doing the replacement, are not required to meet the 25% match if you can show that you've taken reasonable steps to maximize resources available for youth experiencing homelessness. And that is verbatim from HUD. And this is an area where we're trying to get a little bit more detail and some examples of what that would look like, so you can make a decision if you actually are able to ensure that. So these are activity requirements. So you need to make sure that if you are going to submit a replacement application, so you're not submitting a renewal, you've decided to submit a replacement, you have to make sure that the activities that Shannon just went through and I finished up are approved by the Youth Action Board, that you're either testing or you're pretty sure that you're going to have a positive outcome in either stable housing, permanent connections, education, employment, or well-being. You need to show or be pretty sure that what you're doing is going to be cost effective. And then it's really important that nothing that we do at all, but that you're able to ensure that there's no conflict with fair housing, civil rights, or environmental regulations. Great. So we're just going to quickly look at a couple sections. So if you are choosing a YHDP replacement, you just want to make sure that you're going to the right funding opportunity and choosing a YHDP replacement. And you'll have those to choose from, and you'll choose replacement. We've put both sets of instructions here. So if you are doing, you just listened to us and you said no thank you, you're going to do your YHDP renewal application, you want to make sure you look at the detailed instructions. if you're going to do a YHDP replacement application, you also are going to look at detailed instructions, but different ones. So the links are right there. We suggest that with detailed instructions for whatever application you're doing, a regular renewal, YHDP, a new project application, that you really use the detailed instructions are either old school, like I use paper, but more modern people have multiple screens, or you're going back and forth, because the detailed instructions are critical for doing these applications. They really tell you what needs to be there. So you just want to make sure when you're looking at part 3 that you choose the right component type, and then your required answers are off of that. So these are questions that if you're doing a replacement project, you're going to need to answer. So as Shannon mentioned, there are a lot of different, or I think I went through in a slide too, you really have to explain why this is going to work. So HUD is saying, hey, we're going to give you these great opportunities, because there are a lot of really fantastic opportunities, but you're going to need to prove that they're really going to work, that you know why you're doing them, that if you look at 8D, that you're meeting the goals of the community plan, which we have the link in there. And also, if you had waivers in the past, you're going to attach waivers. We have an attachment screen we'll show you. So HUD really wants to make sure you have a really good plan for this. And of course, BOSS and DOH, and we all want to make sure you have a good plan. So HUD is going to really make you show what your plan is, and then I'll show you with attachments as we go on. So just quickly, they're going to ask, there's a part 4 that asks about HMIS standards. It shows up on all the applications, but you only need to answer it if you're an HMIS project. There are just some tips in part 5 and part 6 HUD just explains that there's almost sort of like an error in the system, so you can look at that and figure out how to answer those questions so that you don't get error messages. Okay. So these are the attachments we were talking about. I'll say from the beginning, bullets 3 and 4, we also are trying to get some more information on, but we do know that if you want to do these special activities, you're signing up, you have a plan, you need to get a letter from the YHDP lead and from the Youth Advisory Board. And we will work with Katie and work out the logistics on those for you, but those are attachments. You also need to show your approved project application from 2019. So that's also an attachment. And then, like I said, on bullets 3 and 4, depending on how you answer the questions and what you're requesting, there will be other attachments, and we are getting more information about what that additional documentation needs to look like. So the timeline, I feel like I'm always apologizing because we're always rushing people, but we need to keep things moving for a couple of reasons. We want to get you guys in and out and make this be over for you. We want it to be over, but HUD does also have deadlines where we need to have applications and eSnaps by a certain time. They need to be reviewed at a certain time. So we really do, there's a method to the madness of keeping everything moving pretty quickly. So if we've enticed you, or I guess if HUD has enticed you and you say, yes, this is for me, this sounds so great, and we are going to be able to have the documentation and use the money and be cost effective and meet all of those requirements, you are going to shoot an email to Katie no later than next Tuesday, which again, I know it's quick, but you're going to want to explain and say, I would like to do these special activities, and an explanation of, we're able to do it, we're able to meet the requirements, so that it's on our radar. And then we will probably do a back and forth as we get clarification from you guys and get some more clarifications from HUD. And then our goal is to get, by the next week, to get a draft application from you. I will say the caveat is, as we're getting information from HUD, if we have to tweak deadlines and push things out a day or two, we will certainly let you know. We want to work with everyone. This is not punitive about getting anyone into trouble or pushing you guys too hard, but we do need to stay on track with our review process. So then DOH actually will also look at the applications. Housing Innovations looks at the applications. And then the goal is that you guys are done no later than October 11th. And for many of you, hopefully sooner than that.
I just want to add for the, just like renewal applications for the first time this year, we're going to be using Zengen to collect your drafts of all the applications. So the instructions are linked here on how to submit those drafts in Zengen.
Thank you, Shannon. I know my eyes always glaze over when I see Zengen. And then here's some resources. Again, I can't say enough good things about detailed instructions. They're just really important, and they'll tell you things. You know, most of you, many of you have been in eSNAPs. It's often there's just not enough information. So you really make sure you look at detailed instructions, whichever application you do. We also just have a guide on how to access your project application. And then there's an instructional guide and a navigational guide to your applicant profile if you need to update that. We also put the renewal application training that we did, I don't know, a week or 2 weeks ago. It's all a blur. And that has some relevant information because a lot of the sections are the same, how you answer the questions, and we did not repeat that here. So you may want to take a look at that. And then Katie Duran shared with us the youth plan. So that's the plan that's referred to where you're going to want to make sure that whatever activities you're going to do don't, you know, go against anything in the plan and make sense with what the plan talks about in terms of the vision, mission, and goal of serving youth.
We also linked a NOFO here, which is where a lot of those details about this are. So if you're looking for more information, that's linked here. And I believe that YHDP special activities start on page 36 on that.
Very good. And that's really worth a read because that's where all the activities are listed. So you won't see those in the detailed instructions. Those come directly from the NOFO.
I also want to say in the on the HUD webinar last week, they did say for renewals, if you're just planning on straight renewal this year, they said you can import your data from last year's, the 2019 application into this this application. It's just not a one-to-one transfer. So just pay attention at the sections and make sure everything that needs a response is answered on that. So I apologize, I have some background noise here, but if anyone has any questions they want to share, or Katie, if there's anything you want to add.
I would add just a couple things. So for you youth navigator folks and potentially the crisis TH folks, again, you have the option whether to just do a renewal where you're not adding in any special activities, or if you want to add in any of these activities. A lot of them don't really apply to your program types. So, you know, feel free to give me a call if you want to talk about it a little bit as well. You know, given that I think that everybody, dependent on, you know, when we get more details from HUD about how we can qualify for not doing the match, I feel like we should all ask for the match waiver because, you know, as you know, we have some state funding set aside for the match for some of the programs. That could still potentially be available, but it's so much nicer if we're not indebted to HUD that we have to spend down that money. And as you know, if you're counting it as match, it then has all the, like, it has to fit into HUD categories. So we'd have greater flexibility. So that said, yeah, please reach out if you have questions or want to talk about any of these activities. And the other thing I will note, I'm sure folks' ears perked up at the host home kinship stuff. I think just like how we modified a rapid rehousing program to be a diversion rapid exit, I think that the special activity is only related if you were doing a host home or kinship model. So if you were doing SSO or rapid rehousing specifically as a host home or kinship. As opposed to tacking that on to your regular rapid rehousing. But we can look into that further. I don't know, Liz, if they touched upon that. But I just sure people got excited by that.
Right. And I know, we threw so much at you. I know when we first, I think Katie and I had a call as soon as this came out, we're like, what? And, this is a lot. It's really different. It's, I think it's exciting in a lot of ways, but definitely we're thinking about if you're going to do this, if you're able to meet all the requirements, the documentation, and it makes sense for your agency. But, let it seep in, and then feel free to ask us questions. I try on every call to say like things aren't intuitive. So there just aren't dumb questions. This is weird and different. And, we still have questions. We're keeping a list of questions. We're hoping that when HUD does their next webinar, we'll get a lot of questions answered. But whatever you think of, our contact information is here. Shoot us a note. Like Katie said, if you want to give her a ring to talk through models, or does this sound like it works? And we'll collect questions. We'll answer the ones we can, and then the ones that we can't, we'll make sure that we ask. So it's actually really helpful for us to know what you're interested in knowing more about and where you need more details, because we'll make sure we collect that and try to get those answered.
Liz, and the other question I have is, I thought the YAB approval was only triggered if we were asking for a waiver that wasn't included, like wasn't a special activity included in the NOFO. So if we could just get clarification from HUD on that.
We can ask, but I do, if special activity is, I think the way I'm interpreting it is any of those things that we listed that are allowable under this application that I keep on getting, it's not replacement application.
Yeah, we'll clarify that piece, but we had just talked about that. The way it's written, it's a little confusing, but it does look like maybe any special activity needs to be approved, but that's on our list.
Okay.
So.
All right, thank you.
I don't know if the silence is just excitement. People can't possibly ask a question. If this is like a no way, no thank you. So.
One last thing that I want to know is for the YHDP rapid exit, DOH, like will, just like last time, will submit the application and handle all that, but I will send around the special activities to all the subs to let you know like what I think we'll be including, and we'll probably, for your feedback, and I think we'll probably be pretty inclusive. But just because we're applying for it, we're still waiting for additional details from HUD, such as like, if you buy furniture in their ESG CV webinar, they were like, you have to ask for the furniture back. So we're just waiting to hear like, what are the HUD caveats to some of this stuff?
Yep. Great.
So I see there's a question in the chat. Do we need for the match waiver? Yeah, I believe the answer is yes. We will check, but I believe the answer is yes. I'm curious if there's any of you attending, maybe either put your hand up or put something in the chat. Are any of you right now saying absolutely no, we're just going to do a straight renewal? I don't see any. One thumbs up.
Paul. Got it. And
is this open for new projects too? This was not, so we already did our new project application process, and this was not available to new projects, no. All right.
Well, this is not your last chance at all. Take it in, soak it up, and then, please reach back out because this requires lots of discussion, lots of questions. Again, not intuitive. Very, very little that we do with HUD is intuitive, which means we have to ask lots of questions, and I'll figure out how to wrap our heads around it together.
All right, thank you, everyone. Like, the slides are on the website already, and we will put the recording on the website probably by this time tomorrow.